Welcome back. Good morning. Na 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 na. Good morning. Na 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 na. The rest of my life gonna start today. That song is in my head more frequently than I'd like to admit in the mornings. I don't really know why. But just maybe it's like my little inside self, like, come on, let's have a new day. No matter what yesterday was like, it can be a good day. I've been thinking about, the casual questions of life. What are we doing here? What's the purpose? Alignment, manifestation, God's plan. Do we have free will? Just the casual things you like to talk about over a cup of coffee. So we're going to dive into it just a little bit today. Not in a super heavy way, not in a super intensely researched way, but just let's think about it. Let's ponder it. Because why not? There's a lot of different theories on why we're here. Maybe it was just a big bang that had absolutely no meaning. Just something in the universe happened to organize perfectly that just exploded out, and all these things happened to organize in this beautiful way. It could all be random and meaningless. Could be. And you know what, actually? So I just heard that there was the theory of gravity. We think of gravity as pushing down, right? Keeping things on the planet. In the equation of gravity, it also allows for the pushing out. And so there's this theory that perhaps the Big Bang was a gravitational force that was pushing out, that expanded infinitely out. And if we think about if the Big Bang was actually the center of a black hole, black holes contain a lot of information. Like all the information, anything that gets sucked into a black hole is still stored in the event horizon. Like, yeah, you splat or you whatever if you go in, but all your information, everything that ever enters a black hole's event horizon is stored there forever. Do things come out of the other side of the black hole? Maybe that's what our universe is. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. I'm sure that, physicists and stuff like that have made some more theories, but I just thought it was interesting to learn that the gravitational equation is not only holding in, but it also can push out. That was a very random thing that I learned yesterday. As I was just thinking about alignment, what is the purpose here? Maybe it was a bang that put us here and it was random. Maybe there was an intelligent creator that happened to design everything so beautifully, and that's why we see these patterns and these systems everywhere that we look, and the Fibonacci sequence and cymatics, all these beautiful things. Cymatics, by the way, it's like when you put, let's say you have a metal plate and you can vibrate it and you put sand on top of it and you vibrate the plate at different frequencies and it shows up in these gorgeous patterns that are, if you put it to this one frequency, it will show up in that same pattern every single time. It's absolutely fascinating, something that's really interesting to look into. So is this universe intelligently designed? Is it one creator that created everything? Oh, didn't know we were going to go here. So did God create all of us? In the Bible, it talks about the Elohim, and it says, let us create man in our image. Why is there plural? That's a really interesting thing. We can also think about the theory of, have you ever heard of Annunaki? That there were these alien beings that were from another planet. Actually, it was Tiamat, I believe. And their planet got blown up. And so they needed a new planet to come to or something like that. Or they just wanted to create a planet of slaves. This is the other theory. They wanted to create a planet of slaves. So they came to Earth and they mixed primate DNA with their DNA, mixed it up in a laboratory, and we were created and we were made to be essentially slaves for them. For what reason? I don't know. Are they energy harvesting us? Did back then when they first created us, were we mining material that they needed for their world to survive or to go to another universe or whatever? I don't know. I personally really enjoy the Anunnaki story because I think it's cool. And it goes all the way back to the Sumerian texts. Sumerian is like the oldest civilization that we have. The Sumerian gods were Enki and Enlil. And you've definitely seen carvings and pictures of them before. I can never remember exactly which one's Enki and which one's Enlil, but one of them came down into Earth. The other one went into the underworld. Maybe one of them stayed in heaven, but they were kind of like the masters over this universe, over this planet. But we can go more into the Anunnaki story another time because I think it's really cool. And the fact that it's written about in Sumerian texts is fascinating. One other thing that I've been thinking about lately is that our history books, we all know history books are written by the victors, right? So they can write anything they want in the history books. And we have seen how history can be twisted, even in recent history. And when things are found to be false, do they go back and correct those books or the articles or anything? No, not really. But one thing that's interesting is that myths over time tend to have a repeating story and they have repeating lessons. Those are some theories about how we got here. You know, maybe it was random. Maybe there's one intelligent creator that created us. Maybe humans were created by combining primate and these alien being DNAs and whatever. Okay. Now let's think about, well, what's our purpose here? And we're just playing around today because it's kind of fun to think about theories. Okay. So why are we here? Are we here for some soul mission because we are put on this planet to do a certain thing? Some people say that Earth is a school. It's a school for souls to evolve. And you come here and you go through certain experiences purely for the purpose of evolving, of having these experiences. Some people would say that our souls are all fractals of God, and God is just experiencing life through us because, you know, God existed. There was nothing else. It was just God with God's self. And it was like, I kind of want to play with creation because I have that ability. So let me go ahead and create all these things. And it's like the greatest movie director and playwright with billions of actors, billions, trillions, however many beings are on this planet. Maybe we even count the trees, you know? Is God alive in all of these things and experiencing what it is to be alive in this reality through everything, through the animals, through the trees, through the humans, through the dogs, you know? So maybe it's that. Maybe it's that we're just all little aspects of God, little puppets, and God's playing out all these little plays, and we're just playing out these roles just to entertain it, you know? Maybe we were created to keep God company, to have companionship with God. Maybe God, you know, maybe it's like why you create children. If we're made in God's image, then maybe some of let's say we're going to go along with the Bible story right now. Let's say we're made in God's image. What if part of that, by the way, on made in God's image, is that like God imagined these things and then it was made? Or is it the fact that we're made in his likeness? Because I'm pretty sure that in some places it says made in his likeness. So anyways, let's just go with the likeness. So if we have some of the same characteristics as God, then perhaps the same impulse that we have to create children is the same reason why God wanted to create us. I don't have kids, so I can't say exactly, but why would I want kids? I would want kids just to bring new life into this world, to a little bit narcissistically see little bits of me and see what they can do in the world and experience that love. I think that's the biggest thing, is I just to experience that love and that connection. And so let's say that God created us for that reason. Then God would want us to be connected to it. I'm trying not to say him because I don't think God's a him, but to be connected to God, to have that type of connection and that experience with it and see what we can create in the world. Why not? You know, you like send your children out in the world, it's like, go flourish, do beautiful things. Does God want to dictate our life? Do we have free will? Thinking about free will, there is a story, Greek mythology, a guy named Oedipus. Before he was born, it was prophesied that he would kill his father and marry his mother. Okay? The dad knew about this prophecy. So when the baby was born, he was like, oh my gosh, we can't have that happen. I don't want him to kill me. Even though he loved his son, he didn't want his son to kill him. So he gave him up for adoption so that the son would never have to go through that, so that he wouldn't have to go through it, so the wife wouldn't have to go through it, whatever. So put him up for adoption. He's adopted into this family. Then Oedipus, when he gets older, he hears about the prophecy about himself. And so he loved his adopted parents. He thought that they were his birth parents, okay? And he's like, I don't want to kill my dad. I love my dad. I love my mom. I don't want to marry her. This is disgusting. What are you talking about? So then he's traveling to leave his adopted parents, which he thinks are his birth parents. And along the road, he comes across this man and he kills him. I can't remember why. That was his dad. The man that he killed was his dad. And then he goes into town, whatever, meets this woman, falls in love with her, marries her. And of course, it's his mom. So this is the story that you can't escape your fate, that no matter what happens in your life, you'll always come back around to fulfill your fate. No matter if you try to avoid it with everything that you have, it's always going to come back around. And I think sometimes we can think about that in our own life. Like if you have a calling and you are so scared to do it, eventually you will find, let me speak in the positive because that's what we want to happen. Eventually you will find that you fulfill that fate. No matter how you try to avoid it or how scared you are, you go this way, that way, whatever, you always come back. And then if you're supposed to marry someone, let's say, you meet and then you separate, maybe you fall in love with someone else, maybe you get married to someone else, but some point in your life, you're going to end up back with that person. So is that fate? Is this a real thing? That's what I was thinking about yesterday. Do we actually have free will? Now, the way that I look at free will is if God, again, we're going with the God theory, we're going with the understanding because we can right now, we can play with the other theories another time, which by the way, the Anunnaki theory doesn't negate the infinite creator theory. The infinite creator could have created the Anunnaki or these whatever beings that then came to Earth and created us. That's totally possible, okay? Anyways, so if God already knows everything that's going to happen, then do we actually have free will? Also, time isn't real, right? We live in the third dimension, kind of like 4D, because fourth dimension is time. And if time doesn't exist in the fifth dimension and up, God exists beyond time. Our soul, let's say that we do have souls. Our souls existed before we were born. They go on to exist after we pass out of this physical body. Time doesn't exist, which is shattering to our minds because there is no past, present, future. It's all right now. It's all right now. So is there even anything that's a choice if it all is happening right now? But I guess if we're operating in this reality, then of course there are choices because in this reality there is past, present, and future. But do we have free will? If God already knows the whole plan, if everything has already played out, this is what I'm getting to. If everything has already played out in that infinite moment, in that infinite now moment, which is everything, then did we actually make any choice? Was it all predetermined? Was it all picked for us? But even if God does know everything, if God knows exactly what's going to happen, if nothing is actually happening in sequential order, it's all already happened right now, in this level of reality, there is still a part of me that really believes in free will. And maybe not everything is free will. Maybe there are certain things in our life that are predetermined. I don't know to what degree. Perhaps there are certain things that happen in our life in order to get us to a certain place or to give us a certain experience so our soul can learn that lesson or have that thing or evolve in that way. Or maybe you and that soul made an agreement before you came down to go do this thing in life together so that you could create this or that. Again, we can talk about soul contracts in another one because I love it. I like the theory. But there's a part of me that still does believe in free will. And maybe free will is just that, before you came down, you said, okay, I want to experience these things so that I could learn this, so that I could connect to God in this way, so that I could connect to my soul in this way. Okay, good. Now I'm going to come down. I'm going to have those experiences. And that's what this life is. So maybe free will started when you were up there before you actually came down here and incarnated. Maybe free will is the exact choices that we make in our life. Maybe there is an endpoint that's predetermined or certain endpoints that are predetermined, but we have free will all along the way on how we want to get there. If we truly have free will, if we can truly choose anything, then we can also choose things that pull us away from God, that pull us away from peace, that pull us away from connection. And so maybe when we go off path or when we experience suffering or when something doesn't work out, maybe we're not off path. Maybe it's all just driving us back to that one ultimate goal, whether it's to get to a certain event to happen in your life, or whether that's union with the divine or with your soul. Maybe everything is driving us back to union with God. That's essentially what the mystics believe. What Rumi and so many others say is that everything that happens is driving you back to union with love, union with the divine, union with truth. And maybe they're right. But none of us want to go through life suffering, right? So is there a way that we can, or something that we can align to avoid unnecessary suffering? And think about things that have happened in your life when you've been aligned to one or the other. Because I think we know when we are, let's just say, unaligned, when we're making decisions that aren't truly aligned with where we want to go in life or where we feel called to go. Egoic desires draw you like tight in. Soul purpose, soul path expands you out. That's how I like to think of it, at least. And perhaps a tip for discerning if you're aligned with your soul's path or God's path for you or not is asking yourself, if I could remove all fear of what other people might think of me or how this would turn out, would I still want this? And obviously, you got to be pretty honest with yourself in your answer. If you could remove all fear of what others might think and how this would turn out, would you still make this decision? That's been a good one for me, because as someone who has people-pleasing tendencies, that allows me to remove the fear of hurting other people's feelings or disapproval of other people and connect in with what I actually want and what was actually the best decision for me to make. Does aligning to the soul's path negate all suffering and you'll have a rosy, peachy, beautiful, fluffy life? No, I don't think so. I think that suffering is a fact of life for whatever reason. And maybe it is just because it draws us closer to the divine and to our soul and to love. And it helps us. Like when you suffer, you need love, you know? So is everything in life just to draw us back to love? Maybe. Whether we were created by a big random bang or intelligently designed, each and every single one of us was perfectly designed one at a time, or whether maybe our DNA was manipulated so that we could become slaves to some certain thing, all I know, we're alive right now. Do we have free will? I think so. If we don't, I still feel like we do. And so that feels kind of nice. And I also think, one thing I didn't mention, is if we don't think that we have free will, then we can excuse away the most horrible, horrendous behavior. And I do think that this world needs self-responsibility, self-accountability. So yes, I do believe that we have free will. I do believe that we get to choose how we move through this life. Maybe we don't choose every little thing that happens, or maybe we do have destiny or fate that leads us to certain points in our life, but we do, without a doubt, get to choose how we move from point A to point B, the mindset that we get to have, how we view the certain happenings in life. And even if God already does know everything that's going to happen, we still get to live it out right now. We're still experiencing it for the first time. I think what matters is how we choose to meet what unfolds in our life. And from as far as I can tell, this life is about what energy you bring to it, what truth you want to live into, what story do you want to build for yourself. And I want my story to be a good one. No matter what's happened in the past, no matter if you've suffered in the past, no matter if your life looks like an absolute mess right now, you can make it different. You can. I choose to believe in love. I choose to believe that I do have free will. And I also at the same time choose to believe that there are certain things in this life that I have been put on the planet to do and that they will come to fruition as long as I don't subvert them and deliberately try to avoid them. So I surrender into the plan that I believe that is God or the divine's plan for my life because it is so beautiful and it's so good. And even in the suffering, I know that the good things are always going to come because it always does. The suffering always passes. And if I can just continue to be in love with the mystery of this life and feel wonder in it, then it makes the suffering a little less heavy. It makes my life feel a little bit more playful. So I'm going to continue to dive into the mysteries of life and trust that there is a plan for me, but that I get to choose how I show up, that I get to choose in each moment what my mindset is like. Because if I felt like a victim to my emotion, not doing that. I get to choose. So it's a little bit of a mixture, free will and predetermination. I like that dance. I think that feels the best. And until I think otherwise, I'm going to go along with it. So thanks for joining me on this kind of roller coaster ride today. Who knows what we're going to talk about next time? I've been looking into sin, the concepts of sin, the different interpretations of sin. So maybe we'll talk about that. Who knows? Thanks for joining me today. I'll see you next time.